Welcome to the Disney Wedding Podcast, brought to you by Carrie Hayward's Fairytale Weddings Guide, the only guidebook and bridal organizer created exclusively for Walt Disney World weddings and vow renewals. I'm Carrie Hayward, and each week I share real-world planning advice and money-saving tips from couples who've celebrated at Disney parks and resorts and on the Disney Cruise Line. Join me now as the Disney Wedding Podcast shares real experiences and expert insights from Disney destinations around the world. Today on the Disney Wedding Podcast, I am speaking with Disney bride Mira Schuiling about her ceremony at World Celebration Gardens with a reception at the Napa room at the Contemporary Resort. I thought you guys would be interested to hear how she chose these locations and how she planned everything and how it all turned out. So welcome, Mira.
Hi, how's it going?
It is awesome. So I always like to start at the very beginning and find out how you and your fiancé decided that you wanted to have your wedding at Disney.
Yeah, so it's kind of a funny story. So we live in a very touristy area of Ontario, and wedding locations around here are very, very expensive, like crazy expensive, because you have all the people coming in from Toronto to this area to get married specifically, because we're about 2 hours away. So we're considered rural, I suppose. So once we were looking at all the different places around here, it's crazy expensive. And around the time World Celebration Garden was announced as a location at EPCOT to have your wedding in, it was kind of the perfect timing. We realized, maybe we should just talk to them about it. Maybe see what it would look like. Because at home, the ceremony looked like at least 100 people, really big, extravagant and expensive. It's really hard to find a smaller venue around here. So we reached out to Disney Weddings, and the rest is kind of history, I've always been a Disney fan. I used to work for the company. I did the international college program twice in 2017, 2019. And my partner's family is just a Disney family in general. So it made a lot of sense for us. And so we decided to reach out to them.
That's wonderful. So how did your friends and family react when they found out where the wedding was going to be?
It made a lot of sense for them. Like, they knew right away, like, okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense for you. They were very excited. We told people basically as soon as we secured the dates what we were doing and what kind of the plan was. So they knew from a very early stage in the planning process. Yeah, they were super excited for us.
That's awesome. How many guests did you invite and how many were able to make the trip?
So we invited, I believe, around 45 people. We ended up with a total of 38, including ourselves. So we had a couple of them drop out. I mean, a lot of them were coming, obviously, from Canada. We had quite a few coming from the States as well, but we did expect a few to drop out. I mean, like I said, we talked to people very early on. So it wasn't a surprise that these specific few dropped out, because it was kind of I'm not so sure in the beginning anyways.
I see. Did you set up a room block for your guests?
Yes, that was one of the first things that we talked about doing, because we knew, obviously, like, a lot of our guests were coming in and had never stayed on property or even been to Disney World before. So I knew from the very beginning, like, we need to set up a room block for them so they can actually experience Disney the right way.
Which resorts did you choose?
We ended up going with All-Star Music, specifically the standard room and the family suite, because we have a couple of larger family parties in our families, I suppose. We also selected Port Orleans French Quarter, which is my favorite moderate resort, even though I've never stayed there myself. I love to visit there. And the Boardwalk, which is where I stayed.
Got it. Okay. How did you choose the day of the week and time of day for your event?
So with it being an Epcot ceremony, and especially having the dessert party kind of on top of that, we were really at the mercy of Epcot park leadership. And they were fantastic to work with, don't get me wrong. But we basically gave them a bunch of choices. We had planned out in the beginning our timeline and then said, okay, so here are some options. And they selected from that. We knew in the beginning we wanted a weekday ceremony, just because the price is a little bit on the cheaper side rather than having a higher minimum, all that stuff. So we knew we wanted a weekday, but the specific dates, we honestly just left it up to them to make sure that we had that timeline properly in place. We decided to be more flexible.
So, World Celebration Gardens, you can either do it directly after the park closes or in the super early morning. Which one did you guys choose and how did you decide?
So we did it directly after the park closed. It was really difficult for us because we have a 2-year-old. Well, now he's 2. He just turned 2 while we were down there. And we have 2 nephews as well who are fairly young. So it was really difficult for us to decide between an early morning and a late night. But ultimately, in the end, we realized like the kids are not going to be up for either of them. Or if they are, they're going to be absolutely delusional at either end. So we just decided to go with the late night one because we figured it'd be easier for people to stay up late rather than get up super early. A lot of our choices were honestly made with guest convenience in mind, if I'm being so honest. So that's where that came from.
Interesting. And so then did you have your reception before the ceremony?
We had it actually the following evening. So technically, like 17 hours later.
Got it. Okay, great. It'll be interesting to hear it during the timeline how that all fit together.
Yeah.
How did you choose your ceremony and reception venues?
So I kind of touched on this a little bit before, I suppose, but once I saw that they like World Celebration Gardens was available to book, immediately like that was where we were going to have our ceremony. There was in my mind no other real location we were going to do it. So if that wasn't a possibility, this wasn't going to happen. In terms of the reception, we were a little more open to kind of wherever fit within our timeline, but we ended up going with the Napa room because it's a really good size for the amount of guests we had. And that was true once we had the reception. Like it was a phenomenal place to be. And I just really love California Grill. Like being able to see the fireworks, even though we had already done a dessert party, I really wanted everyone to be able to see Happily Ever After because that show means a lot to me. That was really important to us. So we decided to do it there.
And how did guests react when they found out, late night ceremony and then reception the next day? I think sometimes couples who are planning Disney weddings are worried that people are going to freak out because it's not a traditional Saturday night wedding where everything happens all at once. And so I'd love to hear how your guests felt about that.
Honestly, I think more than anything, it was confusion. I spent a lot of time kind of reiterating the actual timeline. I ended up creating a detailed itinerary for everyone so that everyone could kind of understand what was happening what day. Because a lot of people, I think they thought, and actually, even one of our day of coordinators as well, thought our reception was before our ceremony. So yeah, it was met with a lot of confusion, but once people got it, they did understand. They understood that like we don't want to keep you guys up until Lord knows 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. We'd rather have it spaced out so that people can get ample sleep. And then it also gave an opportunity for the kids to be there for the reception as well, so that they were also involved.
Okay, that's a great idea. Now, since you were one of the first couples to use World Celebration Gardens, do you have any tips about that venue or any quirks? I know also there are a couple places where they can set the ceremony up, and did you find one you liked better than the other?
So I didn't actually know that there were multiple places that it could be set up. I will say this, I'm a very type B bride, I think. I was just kind of a go with the flow, tell me what works best, and I'll do that because I'm more about having things flow well and me not have to worry about it, which I know a lot of people are not like that, and that's perfectly fine. So I don't think I ever questioned it, but we had ours set up immediately in front of the planter where they sometimes have like where they have Figment there for Flower and Garden and all that stuff. Thankfully, no one was there for ours, but it was that planter in specifics, which it was a beautiful spot. It was perfect. It fit all the chairs really nicely. I think if you had more guests than we did, it might cause some issues in terms of spacing with the chairs, but for us, it was perfect. It was a perfect location. Some of the quirks that really worked well for us as well, it was nice that there were some hiding spots. So when the groomsmen they came in first, obviously to do their photos, and then we came in, there was the ability to have a little bit of overlap, but we could still both get pictures in front of Spaceship Earth at the same time because there's so many like little planters and everything like that that are blocking our view from each other because we didn't see each other before the ceremony. We were still able to have that, but get pictures taken in advance, which was really nice. That was one of my favorite things about it is that it didn't slow us down too much.
That's a great tip. Did I see you mention in one of the Facebook groups that they charged you extra to have the lights on Spaceship Earth turned on?
So yes, so it was extra to have us select the ones that we wanted. So basically, I believe it was called the like Spaceship Earth activation light package because normally it would just kind of go through its standard lighting options, which I believe there's a couple of them. It kind of rotates through the night. So you wouldn't get to normally pick which one is up on the ball when you're out getting married. We wanted that. And as well with the activation package, you also have the opportunity to have it's like a sparkling kiss moment. So when you do your first kiss as husband and wife, the ball sparkles and lights up and it's beautiful and magical and all that stuff. It was really, really cool. And then after that, it actually played one of the videos. We got to select from four different options. I guess video is the wrong word. It's more of a montage of colors on the ball, I suppose. They had a couple of different ones which have been played in the parks before, so it's really easy to just go online and type it into YouTube to see, which one you want. We ended up going with the Disney 100 montage, which was my favorite. The music and everything is just like, it's a real tearjerker. So that was the one that we went with.
That's cool. Do you remember how much extra they charged you for that?
It was, I know it was over $3,000. It was somewhere between like 3 to 3.5, I believe. It was basically between that and having the characters at our reception. We decided to go with one or the other, and we ended up going with the Spaceship Earth activation package instead.
That's interesting. Did you guys use any outside vendors for the portions of your event that you were able to?
Yes. So we used an outside photographer for our reception, but everything else, I believe, was done through Disney. Oh, other than dress steaming, we did use an outside dress steamer as well. They were phenomenal. It was the one that Disney recommended. I believe it's Carolyn Allen's steaming service. But it was Sue who came in and she was great. It only took about half an hour and my dress was looking beautiful. Like I said, I came from Canada. My parents actually drove my dress down for me. So it definitely needed a good steaming after we actually got down to Florida. So that was great. It was really great that she was able to just come to the room and it literally anyone could be in the room and it was just done for me. I didn't even have to worry about it. She also did one of the bridesmaids' dresses as well. That was really quite wrinkly. So that was fantastic. And then M3 Beauty, we specifically had Rachel as our makeup artist and Naomi as our hairstylist, and they were both phenomenal. I had the opportunity to do a trial with them a couple months prior when I went down to Florida, and I just knew we were all going to vibe so well. They specialize in soft glam, so that's the kind of vibe that I wanted for our makeup was something more soft because I don't wear makeup in my day to day. So that's kind of why I specifically went with them. And they were so good. It was just the two of them. They went from 5 o'clock to 11 o'clock and no complaints from either of them. They were awesome and we looked gorgeous afterwards. So highly, highly recommend. And then, of course, Jessie Geel's photography. She was awesome at our reception. She just took care of everything. She knew we had chatted beforehand. She knew what we wanted out of our reception photos, and specifically out of the fireworks photos, because those were obviously the most important to us. So, yeah, that was phenomenal. Everyone who worked with, honestly, was just so, so great.
That's wonderful to hear. How did you choose your officiant?
So our officiant is actually a friend of my husband's. Basically, in Ontario, it's a very strict process to get legally married. So we actually did a legal ceremony up here about a month prior to our actual ceremony down in EPCOT, just so we didn't have to worry about trying to find someone who is registered in Ontario to do our wedding. So we had him do it. I wrote a whole script for him. It was great. I'd be more than happy to send anyone my script if they want it. He was really, really good though. So I highly recommend that if you don't need someone who's legitimate, to get your friend to do it because they will add a lot of humor into it.
What kind of entertainment did you choose for the ceremony and the reception?
For the ceremony, we just had the violinist whose name I cannot remember for the life of me, but apparently he is Grammy nominated, which was insane. I would never have thought I would have a Grammy nominated violinist play at my wedding, but he was really, really good. He played The Boys Are Back in Town for when the guys walked down the aisle. Like everyone just laughed as soon as that started playing and they realized what song it was because he did it so well that you immediately picked up on what song it was. He did all of our music before and after the ceremony. He was just phenomenal. For our reception, we decided to go with one of the Disney DJs. So we specifically had DJ Russ And he was so great. We had such a lengthy call beforehand. He really got our vibe and what we wanted. I said to him, honestly, we are late Gen Zs, early millennials at heart, so use that as you will. And so he played some 2000s, 2010s bangers, and it was just really fun. I will say, by the time we got to our reception, a lot of our guests were definitely on the more tired side. So we probably weren't the most like hype crowd he's ever had at a wedding, but we did enjoy the music. He played such a good mixture of that and, decom songs. So he was great.
That's fantastic. Do you have any menu items or cake flavors from your reception that you would recommend? I know sometimes people are wary of using California Grill because you have to stick with their menus with only a few deviations.
Yeah, so for California Grill, I don't believe there are any opportunities to do tastings. You kind of just go into it blind. But if you've ever been to California Grill before, you know how good the food is. And I even asked in the Facebook group prior, like, does anyone have any reviews? And they were just all, bazillion stars. Everyone loved it. So I went into it honestly just being like, okay, I trust them. They're going to take the wheel. They're going to make a great dinner. And they did. We picked the Simi Valley option, which is the 5-course meal. And it was so much food. It was an insane amount of food. But everything was so delicious that you didn't want to stop eating it. So by the time, of course, you get to the entree and the dessert, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't eat another bite, but I have to because it's so good. In terms of our cake, we also just kind of went in blind and picked our favorite cake flavor, which is red velvet with cream cheese icing. And it was truly the best red velvet cake I've ever had in my entire life. So that's my recommendation, but I can't say I've tried any of the other ones. But it was so delicious.
I concur that the red velvet is very good at Disney. Now, did you guys add any events around your day, like a dessert party or a welcome party?
Yes, so we had a dessert party basically as our welcome party. The Monday was basically when a lot of people they either got in or it was their first full day down in Florida. So we wanted to make sure that they had a good time. And the dessert party was a really good option for us because it meant that, first of all, if people didn't want to buy a park ticket, they didn't have to. That was a huge thing on our mind was keeping, our guests' budget in mind and making sure we weren't like forcing them to do a ton of expensive stuff because getting them down there already was expensive and I understood that. So the fact that you don't need a park ticket to get in for the dessert party if you're going to be escorted in, great option. So that was immediately like a hit with everyone. We did obviously have some people in the parks beforehand, like me and my bridesmaids. We did a day of drinking and eating around the world beforehand. But yeah, so we decided to do the dessert party, and it was just such a good option for our guests.
How did you choose Germany for the dessert party? And did you do a ride mix in?
So we did not do a ride mix, and unfortunately, we ended up picking a day where they had the deluxe guest extended hours right afterwards. So no ride mix in for us. We were wanting to do Living with the Land, which we weren't even sure if that was a possibility, but it didn't get any further because obviously we weren't able to do anything. We picked Germany mainly for the size. It was just the A and B promenade together was the perfect size. We had 30 35 people, I believe. We didn't have quite everyone at the dessert party at that point, but it really was the perfect size. We had more than enough room to kind of stretch out, hang out, more than enough room for the desserts to be laid out. So it ended up being the perfect area for us.
Fantastic. Can you give my listeners a timeline of how the wedding and reception all fit together?
So we started on a Monday. We had, like I said, we had people coming in sort of on the Sunday and earlier on the Monday. So we decided to start with our dessert party on the Monday evening. Tuesday, we didn't really have anything planned. Technically, our ceremony transportation started at 11 p.m. on the Tuesday, which is kind of where that aforementioned confusion came from because people were like, well, is it on the Tuesday or the Wednesday? Well, it's technically on the Wednesday. But the transportation, of course, picked you up on Tuesday at 11 p.m. So that's when the ceremony began. It occurred at 12:30 a.m. on the Wednesday. And then we were done by 2 a.m. on the Wednesday. Then we had everyone, of course, go back to the resorts, back to wherever they were staying, get some sleep, get some rest, chill, hang out. And then we had our reception at 6 p.m. that evening. So it was interesting to have it spaced out like that because it kind of felt like we were, separating and coming back together a lot. But I think people ended up, I mean, I know I did really appreciate the rest in between as someone who has maybe a little bit of a lower social battery, I suppose. It was nice to have that rest in between. So then we felt nice and recharged for each event.
That's great. Can you give listeners a timeline of how the reception ran, like when you had dinner versus when the fireworks or did dancing?
Yes. So it was a little bit different than what was in our BEO. What ended up actually happening. So 6 p.m., everyone arrived. We got set up basically right at 6. We just kind of it was supposed to be a cocktail half an hour, which morphed more into a cocktail hour. We introduced ourselves around 6:30 and then food service started at 7. Because it was the 5-course meal, obviously, like it takes a while to get through all 5 courses. So we had that run until probably about 8:45. It wasn't very long before fireworks. And then we had the cake cutting right before that as well, I should add. Fireworks happened at 9 o'clock that night. And then we ended at 11 o'clock. So most people started to kind of trickle out between 10 and 11.
Got it. Okay. So out of all of this, what ended up being your favorite memory of your wedding day?
Honestly, I would have to say immediately following the ceremony and that kiss illumination on Spaceship Earth, it's that montage, the Disney 100 montage that we watched. Not necessarily just for the montage itself, but it was like a nice, gosh, I think it's about 2 to 3 minutes in length. It was just kind of a nice moment where Collin and I, my husband, got to just stand there. We were watching it, but we were also chatting with each other and just like decompressing for a good 2 to 3 minutes before we jumped into more photography. So that was such a nice ad, and it actually was worth every penny we spent on it.
Now, when you guys were planning, what were some of the most important aspects of the event where you focused your attention or your budget? You mentioned that guest experience was really important.
Yes, so guest experience and I guess convenience for them was super important to us. Like I said, we have all these people coming in from all over Canada and the States. I want to make sure that they're having a good time. I know the wedding is about us, but I want to show my appreciation for them coming all the way down for us. So that was definitely number one, making sure that it was easy for them to get around, get to the different events, and making sure that their like comfort was a priority was super important to us as well. Just making it really fun as well for everyone, us included. I've mentioned this before. I'm a more of a type B bride. We are very laid back. We like to have fun. So that was super important to us, more important than having, all the crazy floral elements, all the crazy decor elements. We would rather have fun. So that's where we put a lot of our budget.
Got it. Were there any aspects that were less important where you saved some money or just your effort?
Yeah, so floral is actually one of those spaces. So for the ceremony, we initially had a budget that was actually double what it ended up being. We cut it in half. So as much as I love florals and like it just makes everything look really pretty, World Celebration Gardens is already such a beautiful location that I was like, you know what? Let's take this money instead of spending it on all these flowers and, because this, like I said, this location is already beautiful. Let's, put it elsewhere. So that was one of the things. I mean, even for the dessert party, we went super, super minimal with the decor and the florals because, again, already the location's really cool. People aren't going to be looking at the specifics quite as much.
That's a good point. Now, did anything go wrong or just not turn out like you expected?
Most of it went absolutely perfectly. The one part that we did have an issue with was Disney security would not let the groomsmen in, which when you have only 2 hours, I think it was about 2 hours total in the park to do your ceremony and all your photos and everything like that, 20 minutes is kind of a big deal. So I don't really know exactly what happened because, like I said, I wasn't with them. But from what they told me, basically they thought that they were press or something like that. I don't know. They didn't know that there was a wedding going on. So
Hmm.
they kept trying to turn them away. And they're like, the fantastic driver, his name was Remy. I can never forget that name because, Ratatouille. Obviously. He thankfully was very adamant, like, I'm not leaving. We are supposed to be here. They are getting married. Please let us in. So finally, thankfully, they decided to talk to someone higher up, and they're like, yeah, let them in. They're getting married here. So at the time, I actually didn't know what was going on, which was great. I'm really glad they kept me in the dark about that because I had absolutely no idea. I was stressed out enough. I didn't need that. And honestly, it didn't seem to affect it all that much. It did feel really rushed, the photography part of it. And I just thought that's kind of how it was because we had such a short time. I didn't realize it was even more shortened because of that incident. But otherwise, honestly, they still made sure that we were able to get all the photos we wanted. So at the end of the day, it is what it is. It happened. I'm just glad it didn't rain us out because that was my biggest fear all day was that I was not going to be able to get married in front of Spaceship Earth. So the fact that that happened, I didn't care about anything else.
That's interesting. What rain backup did they have you down for?
I will say this, I didn't know that you could advocate for a different backup. I'm not sure how easy it is, but they gave us as a backup the American Adventure lobby, which a really cool show, but not really the vibe as a Canadian per se. Um, I probably would have, I mean, not that I necessarily wanted to get married at the Canadian Pavilion. I mean, I don't actually know where they would have an indoor section for that. The lobby of the American Adventure is beautiful. It's gorgeous. But like I said, just for a Canadian, I'm like, I don't know, but it's fine. It didn't happen. There was a moment, honestly, beforehand where I resigned myself. I'm like, this is it. This is where I'm going to get married because I was so anxious about the weather. I was at peace with it. So if it happened, it happened, but thankfully it did not. So it's all good.
And for anyone else listening who wonders how this works, when you are 30 days out from your ceremony, you can request a certain backup. They can't guarantee that you'll get it, but it's good to put it in if you do have a preference, and there are options. Some places, like if you're doing a Magic Kingdom ceremony, Tomorrowland Terrace is the only option. But if you are a place where there might be a couple options, you can always ask and they'll try to accommodate it if they can. They won't know until 30 days out.
Interesting. Yeah, I wish I had known that.
Now, is there anything you would have done differently knowing what you know now?
Honestly, I would say no. I think everything went as perfectly as it could. Like, it was just such a good time. Everyone had such a magical, crazy great time that I just don't think there's anything I would really want to change other than maybe a little bit more time for pictures in Epcot. But like I said at the time, it didn't even occur to me that there was, any sort of delay. So that's not something I could change. So otherwise, I would say no, there's nothing I would change.
And do you have any other tips or advice for future Disney couples?
I would say just make sure you're advocating for yourself and asking a lot of questions. I think that's probably one of the things I wasn't so great with because, like I said, I'm very laid back. I just like tell me what works best and I'll do that. And I do kind of wish I had asked more questions because then, maybe I would have been able to pick a better backup location or one that suited us a little bit better. As those sorts of things, if I had known, maybe I would have changed it. But at the end of the day, as long as you're asking those questions, then you're good. So
That's great advice. Well, Mira, I think you've offered a lot of great tips and advice for anyone who's interested in getting married or having a vow renewal at Walt Disney World, and I appreciate your taking the time.
yeah, thank you so much for having me.
That's our show for today. I'm your host, Carrie Hayward. Thanks for listening, and be sure to join me again next week for another episode of the Disney Wedding Podcast. You can find past episodes and photo galleries for each show at DisneyWeddingPodcast.com or listen wherever you get your podcasts. For even more inspiration and planning tips, follow the Disney Wedding Podcast and Fairytale Weddings Guide on Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and YouTube. And for instant answers to all your Walt Disney World wedding questions, download the ebook version of Carrie Hayward's Fairytale Weddings Guide at fairytaleweddingsguide.com.